They're called sauropods, Carter said. Serpent leopards. Fascinating, I said. But what are sauropods? No one knows exactly. Dad thought they were creatures of chaos. Very bad news. And they've been around forever. This stone is one of the oldest artifacts from Egypt. Those pictures were carved 5,000 years ago. So why are 5,000-year-old monsters attacking our house? Well, last night in Phoenix, the fiery man ordered his servants to capture us. He said to send the longnecks first. I had a metallic taste in my mouth, and I wished I hadn't chewed my last piece of gum. Well, good thing they're at the bottom of the East River. Just then, Khufu rushed into the library, screaming and slapping his head. Suppose I shouldn't have said that, I muttered. Carter told Shabadi to return the armor pallet, and both statue and stone disappeared. Then we followed the baboon upstairs. Bum, 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 bum. The sauropods were back, their fur wet and slimy from the river, and they weren't happy. They prowled the broken ledge of the terrace, their snake necks whipping round as they sniffed the doors, looking for a way in. They spit poison that steamed the bubbled on the glass. Their forked tongues darted in and out. Ah! Ah! Khufu picked up Muffin, who was sitting on the sofa, and offered me the cat. I really don't think that'll help, I told him. Ah! Khufu insisted. Neither Muffin nor cat ended in O, so I guess Khufu was not trying to offer me a snack, but I didn't know what he was about. I took the cat just to shut him up. Muffin looked up at me. It'll be all right, I promised, trying not to sound scared out of my mind. The house is protected by magic. Sadie, Carter said. They found something. The sauropods had converged at the left-hand door and were intently sniffing the handle. Isn't it locked? I asked. Both monsters smashed their ugly faces against the glass. The door shuddered. Blue hieroglyphs glowed along the doorframe, but their light was faint. I don't like this, Carter murmured. I prayed that the monsters would just give up, or perhaps Philip of Macedonia would climb back to the terrace. Do crocodiles climb? Anyway, and renew the fight. Instead, the monsters smashed their heads against the glass again. This time, a web of cracks appeared. The blue hieroglyphs flickered and died. Ah! Khufu screamed. He waved his hand vaguely at the cat. Maybe if I try a Hades spell? I said. Carter shook his head. You almost fainted after you blew up those doors. I don't want you passing out on me now. Carter once again surprised me. He tugged a strange sword from one of the Amos's wall displays. The blade had an odd crescent moon curve and looked horribly impractical. You can't be serious, I said. Unless you've got a better idea, he stammered, his face beading with perspiration. It's me, you, and the baboon against those things. I'm sure Carter was trying to be brave in his own extremely unbrave way, but he was shaking worse than I was. If anyone was going to pass out, I feared it would be him, and I didn't fancy doing that while holding a sharp object. Then the sauropods struck a third time. The door shattered. We backed up to the front of the Thoth's statue as the creature stalked into the great room. Khufu threw his basketball, which bounced harmlessly off the monster's head. Then he launched himself at the sauropod. Khufu, don't! Carter yelled. But the baboon sank his fangs into the monster's neck. The sauropod lashed around, trying to bite him. Khufu leapt off, but the monster was quick. It used its head like a bat and smacked Khufu in midair, sending him straight through the shattered door, over the broken terrace, and into the void. I wanted to sob, but there wasn't time. The sauropods came towards us. We couldn't outrun them. Carter raised his sword. I pointed my hand at the first monster and tried to speak a Hades spell, but my voice stuck in my throat. Wow, Muffin said. more insistently. Why was the cat still nestled in my arm and not running away in terror? When I remembered something Amos had said, Muffin will protect you. Was that what Kafoo was trying to remind me? It seemed impossible, but I stammered, Muffin, I order you to protect us. I tossed her on the floor. Just for a moment, the silver pendant on her collar seemed to gleam. Then the cat arched her back leisurely, sat down, and began licking her front paw. Well, really, I don't know what else I was expecting my cat to do. The two red-eyed monsters bared their fangs. They raised their heads and prepared to strike, and an explosion of dry air blasted through the room. It was so powerful it knocked Carter and me to the floor. The sauropods stumbled backwards away. I got to my feet and I realized that the center of the blasts had been Muffin. My cat was no longer there. In her place was a woman, small and lithe like a gymnast. Her jet-black hair was tied in a ponytail. She wore a skin-tight leopard skin jumpsuit and Muffin's pendant around her neck. She turned and grinned at me, and her eyes were still Muffin's, yellow with black feline pupils. About time, she chided. The sauropods got over their shock and charged the Catwoman. Their heads struck with lightning speed. They should have ripped her in two, but the cat lady leapt straight into the air, leaping 3, 4 times, and then finally above them, perched on the mantel. She flexed her wrists, and 2 enormous knives shot out her sleeves and into her hands. Ha ha ha! Fun time! The monsters charged. She launched herself between them, dancing and dodging with incredible grace, letting them lash at her futilely while she threaded their necks together. When she stepped away, the sauropods were hopelessly intertwined. The more they struggled, the tighter the knots became. They trampled back and forth, knocking over furniture and roaring in frustration. Poor things, the Catwoman purred. Let me help. Her knives flashed, and the 2 monsters' heads thudded to the floor at her feet. Their bodies collapsed and dissolved into enormous piles of sand. So much for my playthings, the woman said. From sand they come, and to sand they return. She turned toward us. The knives shot back into her sleeves. Carter, Sadie, we should leave. Worse will be coming. Carter made a choking sound. Worse? Who? How? What? All in good time. The woman stretched her arms above her head with great satisfaction. Whew! So good to be in human form again. Now, Sadie, can you open us a door through the Dua, please? I blinked. No? I don't know how. The woman narrowed her eyes, clearly disappointed. Shame. We'll need more power then. An obelisk. But that's in London, I protested. We can't. There's a nearer one in Central Park. I try to avoid Manhattan, but this is an emergency. We'll just pop over and open up a portal. A portal to where? I demanded. Who are you? Are you my cat? The woman smiled. For now, we just want a portal out of danger. As for my name, it's not Muffin, thank you very much. It's Bast, Carter interrupted. Your pendant, it's symbol of Bast, goddess of cats. I thought it was just a decoration, but that's you, isn't it? Very good, Carter, Bast said. Now, come. While we can still make it out of here alive. Chapter 9. Rerun from 4 Guys in Skirts. Oh yeah, so our cat's a goddess. What else is new? She didn't give us much time to talk about it. She ordered me to the library to grab my dad's magic kit, and when I came back, she was arguing with Sadie about Kafoo and Philip. We have to search for them, Sadie insisted. They'll be fine, said Bast. However, we will not be unless we leave now. I raised my hand. Excuse me, Miss Goddess Lady. Amos told us the house was safe, Bast snorted. Carter, the defenses were too easily breached. Someone sabotaged them. What do you mean? Who? Well, only a magician of the house could have done it. Another magician, I asked. Why would another magician want to sabotage Amos's house? Oh, Carter, Bast sighed. So young, so innocent. Magicians are devious creatures. Could be a million reasons why one would backstab another, but we don't have time to discuss it. Come on. She grabbed our arms and led us out the front door. She'd sheathed her knives, but she still had some wicked, sharp claws for fingernails that could hurt as they dug into my skin. As soon as we stepped outside, the cold wind stung my eyes. We climbed down a long flight of metal stairs into the industrial yard that surrounded the factory. Dad's workbag was heavy on my shoulder. The curved sword I'd strap across my back felt cold against my thin linen clothes. I'd started to sweat during the sauropod attack, and now my perspiration felt like it was turning to ice. I looked around for more monsters, but the yard seemed abandoned. Old construction equipment lay in rusting heaps, a bulldozer, a crane with a wrecking ball, a couple of cement mixers. Piles of sheet metal and stacks of crates made a maze of obstacles between the house and the street just a few hundred yards away. We were about halfway across the yard when an old gray tomcat stepped in our path. One of his ears was torn, his left eye swollen shut. By the scars he spent most of his life fighting. Bast crouched and stared at the cat. He looked up at her calmly. Thank you, Bast said. The old tomcat trotted toward the river. What was that about? Sadie asked. Oh, just one of my subjects offering help. He'll spread the news about our predicament. Soon every cat in New York will be on alert. He was so battered, Sadie said. If he's your subjects, can't you heal him? And take away his marks of honor? A cat's battle scars are a part of his identity. I couldn't. Suddenly, Bast tensed. She dragged us behind a stack of crates. What is it? I whispered. She flexed her wrists and knives slid back into her hands. She peeped over the top of the crates, every muscle in her body trembling. I tried to see what she was looking at, but there was nothing except the old wrecking ball crane. Bast's mouth twitched with excitement. Her eyes were fixed on the huge metal ball. I had seen kittens look like that when they stalked catnip toy mice, or pieces of string, or rubber balls. Oh, balls. No, Bast was an ancient goddess. Surely she wouldn't... This could be it. She shifted her weight. Stay very, very still. There's no one there, Sadie hissed. I started to say, Bast lunged over the crates. She flew 30 feet through the air, knives flashing, and landed on the wrecking ball with such force that she broke the chain. The cat goddess and the huge metal sphere smashed into the dirt and went rolling across the yard. Rawr! Bast wailed. The wrecking ball rolled straight over her, but she didn't appear hurt. She leapt off and pounced again. Her knives sliced through the metal like wet clay. Within seconds, the wrecking ball was reduced to a mound of scraps. Bast sheathed her blades. Whew, we're safe now. Sadie and I looked at each other. You saved us from a metal ball? Sadie said. You never know, Bast said. It could have been hostile. Just then a deep boom shook the ground. I looked back at the mansion. Tendrils of blue flame curled up from the top of windows. Come along, Bast said. Our time here is up. I thought maybe she'd whisk us off by magic, or at least hail a taxi. Instead, Bast borrowed a silver Lexus convertible. Borrowed. Oh yes, she purred. I like this one. Come along, children. This isn't yours, I pointed out. I'm a cat. Everything is mine. She touched the ignition, and the keyhole sparked. The engine began to purr. Bast, I said, you can't just... Sadie elbowed me. We'll work out how to return it later, Carter. Right now, we've got an emergency. She pointed back toward the mansion. Blue flames and smoke now billowed out every window, but that wasn't the scary part. Coming down the stairs were 4 men carrying a large box, like an oversized coffin, with long handles sticking out of both ends. The box was covered with a black shroud. It looked big enough for at least 2 bodies. The 4 men wore only kilts and sandals. Their coppery skin glinted in the sun as if made of metal. "Oh, that's bad," Bast said. "In the car, please." I decided not to ask questions. Sadie beat me to the shotgun seat, so I climbed in back. The 4 metallic guys with the box were racing across the yard, coming straight for us at an unbelievable speed. Before I even had my seatbelt on, Bast hit the gas. We tore through the streets of Brooklyn, weaving insanely through traffic, riding over sidewalks, narrowly missing pedestrians. Bast drove with reflexes that were, well, cat-like. Any human trying to drive so fast would have had a dozen wrecks, but she got us safely onto Williamsburg Bridge. I thought for sure we must have lost our pursuers, but when I looked back, the 4 copper men with their black box were weaving in and out of traffic. They appeared to be jogging at a normal pace, but they passed cars that were doing 50. Their bodies blurred like choppy images in an old movie, as if they were out of sync with the regular stream of time. "What are they?" I asked. "Shabati?" "No, carriers." Bast glanced in the rearview mirror. "Summoned straight from the Dua. They'll stop at nothing to find their victims. Throw them in the sedan." "The what?" Sadie interrupted. "That large box," Bast said. "It's kind of a carriage. The carriers capture you, beat you senseless, throw you in, and carry you back to their master. They never lose their prey, and they never give up." "But what do they want us for?" "Trust me," Bast growled. "You don't want to know." I thought about the fiery man last night in Phoenix, how he'd fried one of his servants into a grease spot. I was pretty sure I didn't want to meet him face to face again. "Bast," I said, "if you're a goddess, can't you just snap your fingers and disintegrate those guys, or wave your hand and teleport us away?" "Wouldn't that be nice? But, my power in this host is limited." "You mean Muffin?" asked Sadie. "But you're not a cat right now." "Well, she's still my host, Sadie. My anchor on this side of the Dua. And a very imperfect one. Your call for help allowed me to assume human shape, but that alone takes a great deal of power. Besides, even when I'm in a powerful host, Set's magic is stronger than mine." "Could you please say something that I actually understand?" I pleaded. "Carter, we don't have time for a full discussion on gods and hosts and limits of magic. We have to get you out of here." Bast floored the accelerator and shot up the middle of the bridge. The 4 carriers with the sedan raced after us, blurring the air as they moved. But no cars swerved to avoid them. No one panicked or even looked at them. "How can people not see them?" I said. "Don't they notice the 4 copper men in skirts running up the bridge in that weird black box?" Bast shrugged. "Cats can hear many sounds you can't. Some animals see things in the ultraviolet spectrum that are invisible to humans. I guess magic is similar. Did you notice the mansion when you first arrived?" "Well, no. And you were born to magic," Bast said. "Imagine how hard it is for a regular mortal." "Born to magic?" I remembered what Amos had said about our family being in the house of life for a long time. If magic, runs in our family, why haven't I been able to do it before? Bast smiled in the mirror. "Your sister understands." Sadie's ears turned red. "No, I don't. I still can't believe you're a goddess. All these years you've been eating crunchy treats, sleeping on my head." "I made a deal with your father," Bast said. "He let me remain in the world as long as I assumed a minor form. A normal house cat, so I could protect and watch over you. It was the least I could do after—" She stopped abruptly. A horrible thought occurred to me. My stomach fluttered, and it had nothing to do with how fast we were going. "After Mom's death," I guessed. Bast stared straight ahead out the windshield. "That's it, isn't it?" I said. "Dad and Mom did some kind of magic ritual at Cleopatra's Needle. Something went wrong. Our mom died. And they released you?" "That's not important right now," Bast said. "The point is, I agreed to look after Sadie, and I will." And she was hiding something, I was sure of it, but her tone made clear that the subject was closed. If you gods are so powerful and helpful, I said, why does the House of Life forbid magicians from summoning you? Bast swerved into the fast lane. Magicians are paranoid. Your best hope is to stay with me. We'll get as far away as possible from New York. Then we'll get help and challenge Set. What help? Sadie asked. Bast raised an eyebrow. Why, we'll just summon more gods, of course. End of Chapter 9. Tune in next week for Chapter 10. Bast Goes Green.